I'm speaking today with Jeremy Smith, the Chief Strategy Officer of Second Market, a platform and a marketplace for secondary assets, primarily at the moment in the US, but trying to grow globally, and definitely with an office and with an operations in Asia. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Give us a sense of Second Market. Is it a platform or is it a marketplace?
It is a marketplace. We think of ourselves as a secondary market, and the reason we don't exclusively use the word platform, although it absolutely fits, is because we use a combination of technology as well as our market specialists. Given that these assets, by their very nature, are illiquid, it's very difficult to say to people, okay, here's an asset class you've never traded in before, now go online and trade it. So we have the online platform that provides the efficiency, the centralization, but we also have our market specialists who are experts in each of the asset classes and help facilitate the transactions between buyers and sellers.
It says in the literature that the marketplace that you create is for illiquid assets, and what you define by illiquid is auction rate securities, bankruptcy claims, CDOs, limited partnership interests, mortgage-backed securities, private company securities, restricted securities, and home loans. What's the size of all of that in the U.S.?
Yes, those are in total about $7 to $10 trillion in illiquid assets.
Is that a pretty broad definition in order to see which ones will take off?
It is, and in fact, I'll give you an even broader one, which is there are exchange-traded assets,
right,
and then there are non-exchange-traded assets. Those non-exchange-traded assets, that's where we live. That's where our specialty is, and that marketplace dwarfs anything else. So there are estimates that they're up to $50 trillion in non-exchange traded assets.
Well, then give us a sense of Second Market. Why was it created, and why take the hard life? I mean, the non-traded assets, they're hard to define, they're hard to legislate, they're hard to trade.
Yes.
That's perhaps why you exist. But what do you see by way of opportunity on the non-traded asset?
Yes, and the fact that they are hard, that's where the opportunity is. Where something is easy, that usually means the opportunity is gone. So what really, now although we were founded 5 years ago and we always saw a need to bring liquidity to illiquid assets, the rest of the world did not necessarily see that need. And although we were very happy with our success early on, we really hit an inflection point in 2008, and that's when we started to see a huge increase in the amount of business.
So what did it take to bring it on stream? How much work was involved in defining the assets, in trying to persuade the asset owner to sort of make it available as a tradable asset?
Yes, I would say the asset classes really defined themselves, and they jumped out to us because as the economic crisis was unfolding, each asset class started to become more illiquid and cause more problems. And as each one emerged, first auction rate securities, a very U.S. specific crisis, and then bankruptcy claims, limited partnership interests, the so-called toxic assets, then private company stock. And as each of those problems started to emerge, that's when we said, well, it's time to apply our model to these illiquid asset classes in order to bring liquidity to them. So, and really, it's that same economic crisis that made it clear to buyers and especially sellers that there was an issue.
Right, and of all the asset classes that you've identified, are you more successful with some and still struggling to build others?
Yes, although I wouldn't say necessarily struggling to build others, but there is a natural evolutionary curve.
So what were the low-hanging fruits in illiquid assets when you first started?
Probably most of the ones that we're in right now were some of the lower hanging ones. Auction rate securities, which has been tremendously successful for us. It was the second asset class that we ever got into. That was one of the more low hanging fruits. Essentially, it was a cash equivalent for 25 years. And then overnight, as investment banks went out of business or had to pull back on their balance sheet, it became a completely frozen and illiquid asset. The sellers had absolutely nowhere to go. So within 2 weeks, we launched the marketplace for auction rate securities, and that's a perfect example.
So what's the value proposition that you bring that makes it tradable? You go and speak to the guys holding the asset, you bring it on stream, and then what happens?
Right. So there's three primary value propositions. The first is centralization. Most of these asset classes had never traded in a centralized location before. And what happens is when you centralize it, it acts as a gravity well. And you bring buyers because they know where to come. And then the sellers know where to come. So more buyers know where to come, and then more sellers know where to come, and you build a network that feeds on itself and works incredibly well.
Why weren't the traditional exchanges not able to figure this one out? Because they've got an OTC and they could have quite easily fit in that platform.
Right, because most of the exchanges, and really most of anyone who tried to bring a solution to these marketplaces, typically either took the wrong approach, or whatever the right approach was, it was not right for their business model. And what I mean by that is, second market is a hybrid market, I think, as I was mentioning before, where we apply technology and human beings. But most exchanges nowadays are purely electronic, and this solution does not work as a purely electronic solution. Whereas other, say, more traditional brokerages, they were just applying the same old voice brokerage model, and that's not what is going to help with the paradigm shift. That's not what's going to help bring unparalleled liquidity to these asset classes.
So the critical success factor in this model is the ability to sell, this hard sell, in order to kickstart that market going?
Not really. You know, what's interesting, because with most of the asset classes, whether it's equities or public debt or government debt, really a lot of the ability to gain superior returns is gone. It's all soaked up because more and more money is pouring into these asset classes. And so buyers are really clamoring for something different, unique investment opportunities. And that's what second market brings to the buyer universe, are asset classes that you were never able to invest in, either at all or in this manner. So once we're able to convince the sellers that this is the best way to sell your assets, a centralized, transparent marketplace, the buyers come naturally.
So how would you define and how would you profile the buy side part of the equation, the people that you've sort of lined up to sort of get the market going?
It's a fairly robust mix. I would say around a third of our buyers are hedge funds. Another third are high net worth individuals, and then the last third is a mixture of family offices, pension plans, endowments, private equity and venture capital firms, traditional secondary market players. You know, that really comprises the rest of the second market buyer base. So it's pretty diverse and pretty robust.
Would you by any chance call your proposition a dark pool in its own right? Would you have a fixed pool of institutional investors like hedge funds, as you mentioned, that you keep going back to in order to trade?
The reason I wouldn't call it dark pool is twofold. One, dark pools are traditionally very liquid. They deal in very liquid securities, which is not the case, obviously, with us. We're the marketplace for illiquid assets. But the second reason is with a dark pool, it's very much an automated kind of matching system. You say where you want to sell something, someone says where they want to buy something, and if the computer can match it, a sale occurs. Whereas with us, although there is most definitely electronic matching and with our online trading platform, there's still very much the human element of helping buyers and sellers facilitate. And really that's how we are able to build this market, because there weren't natural buyers or natural sellers when we started. We had to educate and guide each side to show them how they could transact, how sellers could find liquidity, and how buyers could find opportunities.
Well, given the fact that you're more than a trading platform, if you look at the value that you provide, how discoverable is the price mechanism that you provide? Because you're very hardcore driven in a sense that you've got to bring the asset on stream and then push it to the buy side. But as you do that, if the market isn't natural, how would you describe the price discovery mechanism?